The mythical cash cow syndrome is back with a vengeance. This symptom has long infested the game industry, and some of the biggest game publishers in the world have been devastated by this death-sentencing illness. It's a disease that's long spread across the entire game industry because everybody wants to bite into the forbidden fruit. They all want their own live service cash cow, but Houston, we have a problem, and we need to talk about it. Welcome back to News Dose, where we talk about all the latest gaming news. If you're new to the channel, do make sure to hit that subscribe button for more daily news updates just like this. But let's just go and jump right into things. We have a lot to talk about today. I do have timestamps below if you want to skip around. But for our first topic of the day, I want to start off with a bit of a high note. As some of you may be aware, I'm very excited about Fantasian Neo Dimension. It will be out tomorrow on December 5th, and this marks the return of Hironobu Sakaguchi on home consoles for the first time in over a decade. I mean, in my opinion, the game industry just doesn't feel quite the same without him. The father of Final Fantasy is back, though, with a brand new, or kind of new, but remastered classic-style JRPG, and I'm happy to say that is getting high marks from critics. Currently has an 83 overall score on Metacritic as we speak, though this is only with 12 reviews. So this score isn't necessarily set in stone per se, but so far sounds like it's gotten off to a strong start. Critics are describing it as a strategical turn-based JRPG with an engrossing narrative. And one of the really cool things about Neo Dimension is that it comes with some improvements that the original Apple Arcade version didn't have. It now has voice acting for the first time, which really just kind of adds that extra little layer to its story, and it also has an extra difficulty option. One of the big complaints for the original Apple Arcade experience was that it had some pretty steep difficulty spikes, but thanks to its new difficulty options, that's no longer an issue. So I'd say if you're a fan of Hironobu Sakaguchi and some of his old school Final Fantasy games, or even Lost Odyssey, which in my opinion is quietly one of the better Final Fantasy games, well, Fantasian seems to be cut from the same cloth, and it's apparently pretty good. Now, something that I've been playing a lot these past few weeks is the PlayStation Portal. Ever since they pushed out its latest update, it's been a great experience on my Wi-Fi setup. The micro stuttering issue is completely gone. That was actually previously my biggest problem with the Portal, and there's been no noticeable input lag either. Sony finally made this into what I always envisioned it should be, an authentic, easy to pick up remote play experience. It even has cloud game streaming now, which is a nice bonus. And the reason I'm putting all of that into perspective is because what we're seeing here is that Sony is actively putting effort into making the Portal a better device. They didn't simply just give up on it. And that's something that Sony has been criticized for doing in the past. And the reason they're not giving up on the Portal is for a good reason. Sony just went on record that the PlayStation Portal has been a huge success, and I think that's a really interesting turn of events. You know, they've already mentioned in the past that the Portal had exceeded their expectations, but this almost goes against some of the discourse that we've seen online pretty much since its initial announcement. When the Portal was first revealed, a lot of people automatically thought Sony was just crazy for making a device like this. Like, who would want to buy such a niche device? That was kind of the assumption, yet here we are, and it's apparently a big-time success. So much so that we've even gotten several reports in the last just few weeks that the Portal has convinced Sony to reconsider a standalone handheld for the future. So even if you don't necessarily like the idea of the Portal, I can completely understand that. But it is still, in a way, an important stepping stone to the potential return of a PlayStation Vita-like device once again, which is something that I definitely want. Either which way, though, big congrats to Sony on their success with the Portal. Oh, and speaking of handheld platforms, handhelds seemingly are a big part of the future. We're currently moving into what seems like a potential golden age for handhelds, as every company and their mother is seemingly getting involved by this point. I think by the time we get to 2030, there's a very good chance that all of the big three console manufacturers will have their own handheld console. Currently, though, we're seeing a lot of movement in the PC space. We have the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, and the Lenovo Legion Go. Those are the big three, and then there's also some others as well, but currently, I think there is a bit of a gap in this market. On the Linux side of things, Valve pretty much has it covered with an affordable option. You can go out and get the Steam Deck for as low as $400, and that's without a discount. But when it comes to Windows handhelds, it's a little bit different for them. these are a little bit more pricey. These companies don't really have their own storefront like Valve to maybe offset some of the price. But it sounds like Lenovo is going to attempt to tackle this problem. Renders for a budget-friendly Lenovo Legion Go S leaked online. This was posted on Windows Central, and you can see it here. It actually looks very similar to the ROG Ally, and it's actually a lot different than the current Legion Go. Unlike their previous PC handheld, it's just one single unit. You can't take off the Joy-Con-like controllers. It seemingly doesn't have a kickstand, and I'm assuming the display is a lot smaller than the 8.8-inch screen that comes with the Lenovo Legion Go. The biggest change, however, is that reportedly, it's using AMD's Z2 config instead of the Z1 Extreme. And this is all in order to bring its price down. It's expected that they're trying to bring its price down to $400 to $450, and that would put it right in line with the base Steam Deck. So I think that's actually a really good strategy that would kind of fill this gap in the current market. Again, we don't really have that super affordable Windows option, and Lenovo could maybe fix that if they can manage to do all this with the Legion Go S. Okay, so let's go and shift gears here, and we're going to talk about a discontinuation and a closure, but also, and this is a message to the game industry as a whole. We're going to talk about why this type of stuff keeps happening time and time again. So just kind of bear with me here for a moment. But unfortunately, Ubisoft just canceled their free-to-play shooter, Xdefiant. You can see their official post here, which reads, "Dear players, important message, Xdefiant is sunsetting. Thank you for your incredible support and dedication to Xdefiant. We regret to inform you that we are initiating the sunset process starting today, December 3rd of 2024. As a result, new downloads, player registrations, and purchases will no longer be available. Season 3 will still launch. The servers will remain active and the game will be fully playable until June 3rd of 2025. For those who purchased the Ultimate Founders Pack, you will receive a full refund. Players who made any purchases within the last 30 days will also be fully refunded. Please note that processing these refunds will take up to 8 weeks. For more details on refunds, please visit xdefiant.com. Below is a personal message from our executive producer, Mark Rubin. Thank you for being a part of our journey." Now, anytime there's a high-profile cancellation like this, there's that immediate general wonderment about what about the team? You know, are they going to continue on? And in this case, most of them are not. Stephen Totilo revealed that Ubisoft San Francisco and Ubisoft Osaka both closed. Sydney team is ramping down. Up to 177 people are being laid off. Half of Xdefiant team is moving over to other projects, and Ubisoft had hoped the game would compete with Call of Duty, but recently was denying shutdown rumors amid declining player numbers. And it's that last part there that strikes a nerve with me personally. I've mentioned this in the past, but there is that mythical cash cow syndrome that's infected AAA gaming. There's so many of these AAA companies that are simply chasing a trend, and that's it. They want to be the next Fortnite, or they want to be the next Overwatch, and in this case, they wanted to be the next Call of Duty. All while doing that, though, these companies aren't bringing anything new to the table. That's the problem. They're chasing a trend rather than setting a new one. And that's not how you pry gamers away from games that they're, already playing. I mean, they're playing those games for a very specific reason, and that's because they're satisfied with what they have to offer. So you can't just simply replicate something and expect the same success. Xdefiant wanted to be Call of Duty, and it failed. Concord wanted to be Overwatch, and it failed. Foam Stars, that wanted to be Splatoon, and it failed. They wanted to replicate products that were previously original. The reason that Battlefield had success in the past is because it wasn't trying to be like Call of Duty. It was doing its own thing, and it felt like a unique experience, even though they were both military shooters. I mean, these companies have to realize that it's a competitive and crowded market. You need to do something a little bit more original to stand out. And that's something that I kind of feel like the AAA game industry right now has struggled with for a long time. Even outside of live service games, we've seen less and less creativity as time has gone on. Now, a lot of that's because games are incredibly expensive to make now. That causes these publishers to take less risks. but it's also kind of the reason that certain games have been able to carve out their own space. If you take a look at games like Fall Guys, Rocket League, or even Rainbow Six Siege, those are all unique games that does their own thing. And because of that, they've all managed to appeal to a certain group of people. So I think this is something that studios and AAA publishers specifically should start to pay attention to. There's nothing wrong to have aspirations for a live service title, but you still have to try to do something that stands out. That way, it's a unique experience. In the meantime, though, Xdefiant is yet another victim of chasing a trend rather than setting its own, and I think that's pretty much what happened here. Now, before we go, we do have one more topic, and this is a bit of a strange one. It's one of those situations where a lot of people won't care, and then a lot of other people will care. It all just kind of depends on your view of physical versus digital games. Now, personally, I'm a big supporter of physical media, but at the same time, I do understand that there are some benefits to having digital games. Each to their own. But Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, yeah, that's right, I actually got the name correct today, but the Great Circle is set to release in just a few days. This, however, being a Microsoft game, there's always kind of that question about how they're going to handle the physical copy. And unfortunately, in this case, it's not great. You can see here posted up by Does It Play, and they said, looks like what we feared is true. Indiana Jones is indeed a one-disc coaster on Xbox. Hate to wake up to news like this. Now, this is in response to somebody kind of pointing out that they can't play the game just yet, and that's because what this means is that Indiana Jones is not included on the disc. It's basically a license that activates a digital download. And this is something that Microsoft has done for a number of their first-party titles this generation. It's basically them just kind of rendering the physical version useless. I mean, it's not useless in the sense that you can't play a game, but there's not really much of a reason to own the physical version as opposed to just getting it digitally. Again, I understand that not everybody necessarily cares about that anyways, each to their own, but the fact is that a lot of people do care. And where this could potentially get really strange is if they launch the PlayStation version next year and then it is included on disc. Now, we have no idea if they will actually do that, but for physical collectors out there, it could be enticing to kind of wait and see. And that's just kind of a strange situation for a game that's developed by a first-party Xbox studio. Let me know what you all think about this, though. I mean, do you think this is a big deal or not? Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to hit that subscribe button and peace out.